Hey everyone, welcome back to On the Road of Recovery. We have Brandy here with us from Dayton, Ohio. She's going to tell her recovery story. How are you doing today, Brandy?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we'll get right into the beginning. Can you describe your childhood for me? What was it like? Did you grow up with both of your parents?
I was born in New Jersey, and my mom was she just graduated high school when she had me, and my dad and her did not stay together. I didn't even meet him until I was about 10. She met a man, and he adopted me and kind of raised me as his own. They got divorced when I was about 6. Life was always kind of chaotic. We moved. I think I went to 22 different schools,
Wow.
sometimes 3 different schools in each grade year. So I never really learned how to form connection or relationships with people, and I was always waiting for the ball to drop. Like, when are we moving next? Like, I would literally be sleeping at a friend's house, and they would come to pick me up from the sleepover, and they would have the car packed, moving, and I would have no warning. So it was just a lot of fear and chaos. My mom, now I've figured out, my mom was young and she was just trying to figure it out. They were homeless at times, partying. They weren't so much an alcoholic or addict, but I think they just did their thing, and it was just a lot of chaos and instability. A lot of love. Don't get it. It was a loving family, just a lot of chaos, and I never knew it was coming next. So that part was difficult, and it kind of affected my relationships later on, but that's another story.
Do you have siblings with you?
Yes, I have a sister and a brother that live here in Ohio, and they're from my mom, and then I have a brother and sister that live in New Jersey from my biological father.
So you met your dad when you were 10?
Yes.
How was that?
Weird. We're both kind of quiet people, so building a relationship was really difficult because he is kind of to himself and reserved, and I am an introverted person. I have extroverted qualities, so it was we never quite bonded. We have a better relationship today. I have a son, so they've kind of, it's kind of brought the bridge between us, and we have a good relationship now. But yeah, I never called him dad or anything like that.
Got it. And how old were you when you first started experimenting with drugs or alcohol?
I was 12 or 13 when I first drank, and I got really drunk the very first time. I don't know what made me decide just to drink the whole thing in one drink, but I did, and I got sick and I blacked out, and I was with a bunch of friends in this apartment complex, and I remembered that was the first time I realized I could manipulate my mother, because she believed my story, or at least told my stepdad that I had just tasted it. And I knew she kind of did it out of guilt, so I knew I could use that from that point on to continue doing whatever I wanted to do, basically. Yeah, alcoholic from day one.
So from there, high school, obviously. How was that? Did you continue to drink, or did you wait till later on in life?
I drank a lot in high school on the weekends and, with friends, and I smoked weed a lot. I didn't do any other drugs. I was really against harder drugs, and I would warn my friends, don't do that. Oh my gosh, what if you die? And up until I was about 19 years old, I really hated harder drugs. I judged all my friends that did it, and I would get really worried. And then I had a friend die in a drunk driving accident, one of my best friends, and I started eating acid and just whatever I could to not face reality. And then after that, I was dating a guy, and he did cocaine. I wanted to break up with him. I was mad. He was hiding it. But then I tried it, and it was okay, well, this is fun. And I did that on the weekends and drank a lot. And then when I was about 30, I lived in Florida, and I met a guy, and he said he was addicted to pills, and I was like, well, okay, whatever. I've done Xanax before. It's not a big deal. And he introduced me to oxycodone, and he tried to warn me, and I just thought it was just like any other drug I had done where I could binge on it basically and stop on Monday to go to work. But that wasn't the case. I became physically dependent on it, very quickly. Within the first year, I was surrounded by DEA, put face down on the ground with guns in my face for selling to an undercover. So I got my first felony at 30. It progressed to shooting it up. So then I became an IV drug user. And after that, it was like I was so lost in this abyss that is opiate addiction. But I thought it was great because it relieved me of I felt like it relieved me of all of my anxieties and my insecurities, and I didn't have to drink. I was like, this is awesome. I don't black out when I use these. You know what I mean? I can function. I can go to work. And it's like, it was my best friend. I felt like this is what my body has needed my whole life. Like, I finally feel normal, you know? And, but then it took over my life, and it was the worst hell I've ever lived, ever. Went to prison in Florida. I have a sale and delivery of oxycodone. So I'm like a convicted drug dealer. You're welcome. And possession of oxycodone. And I went to prison, down in Florida, got out, didn't stop using. I thought I could just drink again, and just stay away from pills. Well, that plan didn't work out. I was still a binge drinker, and then it escalated into daily drinking to where my body was shutting down. And then I moved back to Ohio, and drinking continued, but then I found heroin. So I used heroin continuously until February of 2014, and I used the whole time I was pregnant with my son. So I told my doctors I had been using heroin and opiates, and they said, don't quit. You may lose the baby. Just, either go to methadone or try to taper down. And as long as when you have the baby, you don't have any in your system, or you're on a methadone, or they didn't really have Suboxone then as much, that you won't lose your baby. You know what I mean? So I was trying to be honest. Well, January of 2014, my grandfather died, and he lived in Georgia. So I went to the doctor, and I asked if I could go down to Georgia for the funeral. My son was due in a month. And the doctor said, yeah, you're fine. He's not going anywhere. Just go ahead, make a couple stops so for blood clots and things. And so I got to Georgia, and within 24 hours I was in labor.
Wow. So
I had to Google the hospital. And when I walked into the hospital in Georgia, they just saw me as a heroin addict. I had track marks, and I'm 8 months pregnant. And I wasn't treated very good. I was in detoxing because I didn't bring enough dope to get me through the weekend that I was down there with my mom and my grandmother and my nieces, and it was just, I was a mess. And then, so I had my son that night. I woke up detoxing, scared, terrified, and at first I just wanted to leave my son there until he got out of the hospital and go back to Ohio because I didn't know what else to do. And my mom, she said, no, you're not leaving your child here. And so that initial shock wore off, and I saw my son, and a social worker came in, and she said, you're going to have to get treatment. And I was like, how am I going to do that? I don't know anybody in Georgia. Where am I going to go? I can't do that. I'm going to go back to Ohio. It'll be fine. I'll come back. I'll get whatever. And again, my mom said no. She said, you're not doing that. So at that point, when they said, we're going to take your son, I was like, okay. So I started calling treatment centers. Luckily, Georgia has a few where mothers and their children can live. So I went to treatment in Athens, Georgia, to a place called Women's Services that allowed children to live there. And my son lived there with me for the first 9 months of his life. And since then, I've stayed sober. I work a recovery program. I'm in a 12-step program. I've had my son ever since. He's amazing, and he's 7. And I'm now a social worker, and I have my master's degree from Ohio State.
Wow.
And I'd get to do really cool things with my story, which is amazing. I love my life.
So I'm going to back up a little bit.
Okay.
So that story is amazing, and how you got out of it is amazing. It sounds like you were obsessed with opiates. Would that be correct?
Gosh. The obsession for opiates was stronger than I mean, it outweighs everything. Love, hate. I mean, I would lay on my couch and not want to do it so bad. And I would just look at the clock and it would just tick, tick. And I would never make it. I would never make it. As much as I would cry and I would write my baby letters about how he deserved a better mother, and I could not stop. I couldn't stop. Like, I wanted to stop so bad. Like, every fiber of my being wanted to stop. And I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. I failed every single day. Every day. It's horrible. It's like, I don't even know how to, like, I drew a picture, like I painted this picture once, and it was like blue waves, and in the middle is this black darkness, and it was just, you just get swallowed up by it every single time, and you were powerless. Right. You were completely powerless. It's not the amount of love you have for your family. Like, there's no denying it once you're in that vicious cycle. Like, I mean, it's not it's not deciding one day you're not going to do it. If that were the case, every addict would stop. Like, right. We would. No person that has that level of obsession and addiction wants to continue doing that to themselves or their family. They don't.
Right.
They hate themselves.
Right.
Every single moment.
Did you ever experience any traumatic events while in active addiction or even sober?
I never experienced, like, when I was young, I never experienced like any sexual assault. There was domestic violence in my family, a lot of external violence around me, like fighting and guns and things like that, but nothing primarily that happened to me. In my family, we also have a lot of terminal illness around ALS, so I knew loss a lot. Like, my mom, my grandmother, my great-grandfather, everybody died of ALS. And they were young, 56, 43, just super young. And so not only did I have instability in my life, but I had instability on who's going to die next. It was always this like looming cloud. During my addiction, I put myself in really dangerous situations. And only a couple times where I was afraid of who I woke up next to and what they were going to do, or what I did do. I had no idea sometimes. I want to explore EMDR, it's trauma therapy, and rapid eye movements and stuff like that, because I think trauma therapy and treating your trauma is so important, so important. Luckily, I worked my steps and have processed some of that stuff through there, but
yeah. I agree. I also have the same thoughts on that. So, have you ever been diagnosed with any other mental health illnesses in the past or since you've been sober?
No, maybe depression, and PMDD. Now I have PMDD, which is a lot of fun.
Do you take anything for it?
I did. I've tried a bunch of prescription medications, and they tend to just make me worse or apathetic or not caring. So now I just try to really use different coping skills on dealing with it, and I'm very mindful of my thoughts and which ones are real and which ones aren't. And I keep a schedule of my period, which is weird, but you have to know, because then I'm like, oh, it's 7 days before. So I don't want to quit my whole life.
Right.
It's not real.
Right. So you're just mindful.
I'm mindful. I pay attention to my moods. I pay attention to my thoughts. I examine the evidence, all the things they teach you. I really try to do those, because sometimes I'm like, Brandy, that thought is not real.
Right. Your
son would not be better off with his dad. Like, you don't want to break up with your boyfriend. You shouldn't sell your house to move to like Arkansas. Like, don't do that. Don't make any major decisions for 10 days.
Right. Right. That's a good rule to follow, for sure. How long have you been sober now?
I've been sober for about 7.5 years. My sobriety date is February 23rd, 2014.
Is this the longest time you've stayed sober?
I never tried before that. I don't think I got through a Tuesday.
So the turning point you were talking about was in the hospital then, when it was just like, there was really no way out of this, and you saw your son and you were like, all right, I will seek treatment.
I decided that I was going to do the treatment. Mm-hmm. I hadn't decided that I was going to do this recovery thing or stop using drugs and alcohol. That wasn't the point. Like, that wasn't the moment. I did it because I had a case plan, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna check off the boxes, do what they want me to do so I could take my son home. So it was basically like, okay, they've given me an assignment, I'm gonna do it. I decided about 4 or 5 months into treatment and going to meetings and building a relationship with God, like, I had a moment when I was so desperate. Like, I just had a wake up call. Like, I don't ever want to live like that ever again.
Right.
And it was that moment, probably 4 months, 5 months into recovery or sober, that I was like, I really want this. And I was going to do whatever anybody told me to do. So it wasn't in the moment in the hospital, but later when I just let the process, it kind of happened on its own, you know?
Yeah. And
Had
how
the
does it
spiritual
feel?
awakening.
How does it feel to be almost 8 years sober?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Don't get me wrong, life is hard. Like, it's hard, and I don't know. I think I know what the next year is going to bring, but I never know. You know what I mean? I've experienced great loss and heartache and trials, but the peace and serenity I have, like, I can go to sleep without a substance. Like, I wake up and I don't, like, it's freedom. And the things I get to experience, life is beautiful. Like, not only it's hard, life is the most beautiful thing, and we think we're supposed to avoid pain, right? But we're robbing ourselves. Like, art, music, none of these things would be possible without heartache and pain. They wouldn't. Like, and we miss a lot by just trying to avoid it. And I've learned that. So now, even when I feel like my heart is being shredded into pieces, I really try to figure out, okay, where am I learning? Where am I growing? Just get through the day. And I don't know, I've experienced some really awesome, amazing, wonderful things in my life. Like, I've been to my son is 7 and he's been to 8 countries.
Wow.
Like, once he was in children's services, and now he's been to 8 countries. Like,
all around the world.
I love it.
That's
like,
awesome.
Life is, we just try to experience it and do whatever and help the next person that's still struggling, you know?
Yeah.
He knows all about that too.
So what do you do to maintain your sobriety?
Oh, I go to meetings. I didn't always. I've kind of been in and out a little bit of AA, but that has helped me learn how to be a better human. It's taught me how to process emotions. It's given me a support system with people and women that are amazing and beautiful. And I'm telling you, if you can get in a room with a bunch of alcoholics and addicts, they could give you like, my whole house has been renovated by people that have struggled with addiction. Like, they're talented, they're amazing, and they will give you the shirt off their back. I go to church. I give back to the community. I'm a social worker. I'm a counselor for substance use treatment. So my life is like literally walking recovery. I was in the fellowship at Ohio State for the opioid workforce expansion program. So I've tried to get out of the substance use field, and God is like, nope, that's where you belong. So
wow,
I'm stuck here.
Good for you, though.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what about your relationships now versus 8 years ago?
Oh my gosh. My relationships now, I mean, they're so fulfilling. Okay, so I went through something really hard 2 weeks ago, where I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see. I mean, I was just, it was probably one of the hardest times of my life. And instead of back in the day when my friends would be like, here, I have this drink, or I have this pill, or let's go out and party and F him and whatever, they brought me books and flowers, and they prayed with me, and they prayed for me, and they taught me how to get through it. None of my friends in the past taught me how to get through shit.
Right.
Except for maybe withdrawals, you know? And now they teach me how to be a better woman, even when life is kicking your ass. And I can't, if it weren't for those people, I don't know where I would be today. I just don't.
That's awesome.
They're amazing.
What dreams do you have that otherwise would not have been possible?
Oh, I have so many. Well, I want to work on legislation that's surrounding substance use and the stigma around substance use, the criminal justice system. I think we are housing and incarcerating way too many people that struggle with substance use and mental health, and where they should receive treatment. And it's just causing recidivism and all of this thing, because I think it's a money market. I could go on a whole tirade. So I used to be really introverted and really shy, and now I use my voice, and that is the biggest thing. I use it to make noise and to not shut up about this. And I wouldn't be able to take my son to 8 countries. Traveling is my thing. I would really love to be a traveling social worker, on the street, kind of doing what you guys are doing, taking pictures, photographing real people and hearing their stories, but also giving them resources to be able to get up and do something better. Because a lot of people don't even know that what's outside of their box is possible for them. I grew up really poor. I didn't understand. I never thought it would be possible for me to have a master's degree. Never. It wasn't even my realm of thinking, because that was my box, right? I was a poor white girl that lived in the projects, the Christmas toy drive. That was my life. I never saw myself. I didn't feel like I was capable of doing anything different. And luckily, I was able to prove that wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I just want to help other people do that too.
Good for you.
Get out of the box.
What was your favorite country you visited?
Oh my gosh. Probably Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
I love Puerto Rico. There's so much art and history and cathedrals. It's just amazing. It's beautiful.
I'll have to check it out one day.
Yeah.
If you were still using, where do you think you would be now?
I would be dead.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Fentanyl came around after I got sober, and I have zero doubt I would be dead in the ground today. No doubt.
Yeah.
None.
And what was the biggest challenge you faced in recovery?
I believe my biggest challenge was figuring out my identity, because I felt like I didn't know who the real me was. I was always trying to fit into whatever identity that someone else wanted me to be in, where I felt like I belonged. And I didn't really quite fit in with street people. I was really quiet. I wasn't real. So I guess my identity. And then when I became a better person in sobriety, that was a real struggle for me. I felt like a fake. I felt like a fraud. I thought I was just deceiving everyone. I'm really not this recovered person that's doing good things for people. And that was probably the hardest struggle, was figuring out who I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you learned from your addiction?
Oh man. Honestly, gratitude. I'm not grateful for everything, what I using when I was pregnant, but I am so grateful for everything I went through, for going to prison. I got to meet so many people and just realize I broke my own stigma, because growing up I hated drugs, right? And then I did them, and I'm they're just regular people, we're just regular people, and we get caught up, and gratitude.
Do you have any words of hope that you would like to share with someone trying to get sober?
Just don't give up. Just keep jumping. Even when you get sober and it feels like your back is against the wall and you have license issues and fines and court and children's services, keep jumping through the damn hoops and just do it, and don't give up, and take whatever resources you can find and run with it. Just do it. It's afraid, but it's scary. Just keep doing it.
Very motivational.
Yeah.
Okay, so we covered a lot today. So is there anything that we missed that you wanted to talk about at all?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because you covered a lot. And I mean, thank you for everything you do in recovery. Personally saying thank you, because I believe that people like you is what we need in the recovery community. People that are trying to reduce the stigma and people that are encouraging other ways than decriminalization or criminalization of, you know what I mean? Like that, those people are going to make a difference. People like you.
Yes.
So your story is going to help a lot of people. We appreciate you coming out to On the Road of Recovery, and thank you again.